Alrighty. Live again for the week. Yeah. Good stuff, man. So, first day of classes, so we'll see what kind of crowd we get. But I thought I'd go live while I dealt with the web captioner that I decided to get. I don't know what so I just not get, but like this service use. So I'd like to log in. Okay, there we go. Sign in. Ooh. Okay. Okay, so let's get this captioner going here. You are signed in. Yep, you can use my microphone. Yeah, listening. Too quiet. I don't think it's too quiet. That's insane. That actually works. Okay. So, pop you out. And shrink you down. I guess I'll just put you behind. I guess I'll just put it right there. I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with that. Okay. Right. What I want to do is add a new source. And I want this to be a window capture. Add a new source instead. And I'm going to call this web app. Web captions, I guess. Add source. Select from web captioner. Okay. Perfect. Then I'll just crop it a little bit smaller. Whoops. Too small. Cropped. I said cropped, not dropped. Crop. There we go. I'm actually very pleased by that. Oh, that's an issue. I cut a little bit off, too much of it off. Right there. Hey, kitty. Welcome to the stream. Wednesday night stream. First day of classes for me. I did 2 classes. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. And I told them all about their first day of classes. So I did research methods, which kind of got me interested in talking about tonight's topic. So that was research methods, and then afternoon was memory. Had some good times talking about that. Talking about memory. It's funny seeing the captions show up there. Kinda like it. Okay. So I'm pretty excited that I got this captions going. it just took just straight up asking another streamer, hey, what do you use for your captions? So yeah. All right. I'm gonna pull up oh no, I don't. Short history. Oh, maybe we could do that one. How did that open it? Oh, there it goes. Great if I had a... I want just like a flow chart. I just want a flow chart. Why you gotta do this? Oh, because that... process. Ah, here we go. That's what I wanted. So which one's got a good... Which one's got a good... not gonna be super... I want a really awesome looking graphic. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. I like this one. Yeah, okay. Okay, I like this one. Whoops. Whoopsie doody. That option again. I don't know. There we go. There we go. Oh, hey, Kerrigan. How's it going? Good to see ya. As well as earlier today, of course. I hope the evening is treating you well. Apparently, I need to be, like, right up on the mic for this thing to pick up my, my voice. Like, my words properly. Stupid. Alright. Yeah. Teaching in a mask is really, really sucky. My mouth after, or my mouth area after teaching for 2 hours in the morning, it was just drenched. Oh, I'm sorry, your connection's super laggy. That's annoying. But thanks for coming to say hi. Hopefully you'll stop by when you need something, and we can talk about it. Gonna kind of just like go into way more detail about clinical trials than I would in a research methods class, but class today got me thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, just in case, you know, if first week nobody has questions about the class or the material, because I haven't gone over any material. So unless there are any administrative questions for any of my classes, I don't expect there to be anything related to office hours, but you know, I thought I'd be available, and I'm getting a new computer on Friday, set it up over the weekend, and then I'm gonna try to get my old tablet as something that I can like use my really fancy stylus to like draw, and then have that on somewhere on stream, you know, wherever I am. That would be really awesome. I'm gonna look into that. I think there's a solution, but I don't know. So, but anyways, that was a bit of a digression from what I was saying about class today, getting me onto the topic that I put somewhere, the title that's below me if you're watching me on the main window. The title what am I trying to click on here? Oh, sorry, I started thinking about something else. I'm a bit tired is what I'm trying to say. I'm a bit tired, but I did still want stream, because I said I would. Just trying to open up Discord here. Did you know? Oh, don't say did you know and then peace out on me. All right. Putting in a message Discord to see if anybody else stopped by. Twitch.tv/cog psych prof. Boom. Yeah, man. Okay. Okay. We'll see if anybody from the TKF comes by. The Knowledge Fellowship. Some awesome people in that Discord. And a bunch of edu streamers, you know. Which is what I... use is what I want to aspire to. Some of these streamers are really good. Alright. So I have that open, although I could probably minimize that. What else? Okay. So I am going to... Well, I guess I can add it. Go to... There we go. Like that. Let me get my captions on. Window capture. Let's crop it. Let's crop you here. All right. Probably reduce that. Hopefully it's still readable. There we go. All right. So I thought, so this idea came through because I was talking about vaccines, because I was mentioning to my students in research methods today that you know, I'm gonna try to incorporate the vaccine testing that's going on right now, because those are in clinical trials, and clinical trials is a kind of research method, specific form of research method that involves a number of different change here, change there, depending on what it is are trying to investigate. Here I have up in the what am I doing? There it is. In here on this lovely little flow chart, I'm gonna see if I can increase it just a little bit. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And as I hover over it, actually kind of works. Oh, I'm fine with that. So I mean, psychological research methods do actually rely quite a bit on clinical trials, but this graph is pretty much 100% drugs. But I think it gives an idea of, you know, what's related to psychology, which are, you know, antidepressants, anti-anxiolytics, you know, anti-anxiety medication, psychotropics, things that could imitate things like cannabis, for example. Your what was the other one that hallucinogenics, or but I mean, those last two are maybe may or may not be therapeutic, but and then your antipsychotics, the like thorazine. So a lot of stuff in psychology relies heavily on this process right here. That process is extremely important for getting good medication on the market for treatment. So the clinical trial is necessary for knowing that the basic research that you do over here on combinations of chemicals at the molecular level, you want to make sure that what you are finding as far as the chemicals go, it works out, you know, in broader systems and more complex systems, like in people, right? Because we're going to be talking about people. This is people research. We're doing drug studies, giving people unknown substances based on understanding of chemistry and physics. Even the dreaded organic chemistry. I was gonna say OChem. I mean, I guess it is OChem. So I think when I talk about control group designs, this is when I generally in class, this is when I generally bring up clinical trials, because clinical and I do end up at the end of health psychology talk about clinical trials in reference to like what the placebo might be doing in a certain situation. So the power of belief and expectations in the way that placebos ultimately work. And even if something is ultimately placebic, it still might actually have gone through all of this, and maybe only in this last phase 4, where there's, you know, post approval research and monitoring of other populations. What if it just starts to be placebic in a way? So yeah, I think it's important to note that. So research methods. When I talk about control group designs, I talk about clinical trials, as well as something and the blindness of the study, whether it's single or double blind. And then I talk about these kinds of methods when I placebos and cam. But I like talking about them. I really like talking about them. Because it's and in the United States, it's a really crucial process. It's a very interesting process, and it's a very long process. And there are only a few ways that you can, get things sped through the process like this. It's meant to take a lot of time, but a global pandemic is pretty important. Is something where time is of the essence, and so we need to do it as fast as possible. So the FDA is actually breaking a number of its own rules in order to get a vaccine on the market as soon as possible. A safe vaccine. Yes, exactly, Uncle Bill, exactly. So you are having to take all of this research and bring it down into a single drug that ends up with a patent, I believe. I don't know the legal side of having just now a single drug. I think it's a certain amount of time, and then generics can be made or something like that, or derivatives can be made. I'm not entirely sure on the legal side of that, but what you end up with in this FDA approved process is something that has withstood the test of time. That's why this process is so slow. It's withstood the test of time. And that's a really important test. Yeah, it should do the thing that you say it's going to do based on this research. But it's really important that it does what it's supposed to do over time, and how long how long is a treatment versus how long is maintenance versus how long all these things come into, and that's why time is so important in these clinical trials. Except when the emergency needs to get over quickly. So that's one thing that I think is also interesting, which pointed me to doing this direction of the stream, that the sort of broad topic, in case that, unless there's office hour questions, class related questions. Told my students today that they should come by. If they have any questions, anything. Oh, and I'm wearing my NASA shirt. I mean, this is like the dime a dozen NASA shirt, but I'm wearing my NASA shirt today for no particular reason. Talking about clinical trials. I mean, it's kind of related. NASA does do some clinical trials, actually. And they have to get approved by the FDA, which I think is great. Some interagency discussions going on there. But the vast majority of people doing clinical trials, and this is, I guess, the best example, drug companies, big pharmaceutical companies, small pharmaceutical companies, techie pharmaceutical companies. That one really creepy woman who faked create a heart pill, the documentary on HBO. I am so blanking. Elizabeth Smart, right? Who had a you gotta do, this is our miracle pill. Oh, if you haven't seen that documentary, I would definitely suggest it. So, we're gonna just use drugs. Taken out of context. We're just gonna use drugs. So big pharmaceutical companies hire chemists to fiddle around with chemicals. Just fiddle around with them. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying it. They hire chemists and biochemists to take research that exists in real life, from medicine, from biochemistry, from biology, anatomy and physiology, blah 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 blah, and figure out how systems work, which is incredibly important, and how potential artificial substances artificial or natural, it really, I mean, all of the natural stuff has basically almost been found, right? I know that's not actually true, but it maybe it's close to being true. But no, I'm kidding. There's been a lot of natural stuff, like aspirin is the bark of a tree. We have ginger stuff and the compounds in ginger that are antiemetic. So there's a lot of natural stuff. But then we create things that are like the natural stuff, and they become the artificial stuff. And that I feel like is what this, basic research and drug discovery channels on this situation. I don't even know what I'm saying. On this side of the flow. Excuse me. So artificial stuff. So I'll give an example. I'm not entirely I don't remember what the chemical is called, but it is the chemical that is supposed to reuptake serotonin in the in the synapses in your brain, right? Serotonin is one of those more important neurotransmitters, and it controls things like mood. Okay, and so you have a class of drugs that are called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Those are the SSRIs that you'll see, right? So, for example, the generic sertraline, that's the name of the drug. That's over here on this dot, right? That mimics the chemical that is necessary. It doesn't mimic serotonin. It mimics the chemical necessary to open up the reuptake vesicles in the presynaptic neuron. So the neuron that sent the message, okay, it's supposed to take the free-floating serotonin back up into itself for the next message, for the next action potential that comes down the axon. So if it doesn't take it back, or then you have not enough serotonin. If you don't take it, if you turn the vesicles off, then that leaves free-floating serotonin in the synapse for binding on the postsynaptic neuron. And so sertraline mimics the lock and key on those vesicles and tells them to stay shut. It says, no, you're not opening, okay? You stay shut. And because the reuptake vesicles stay shut, that means more serotonin will get to the postsynaptic neuron for an appropriate message. So, understimulated neurons are potentially the physical antecedent to feeling depressed. It makes sense, right? What we call feeling depressed is just under-messaged, okay, under-stimulated postsynaptic neurons. It's a really interesting idea. I have no idea if it's actually true, but it makes sense to me. It makes intuitive sense to me. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I only play one in the classroom. I should get a laugh track. So, got to figure out how chemicals work and whether or not we can make them ourselves. Whether we can make them ourselves. So that's what the basic research and drug discovery are for. Okay. And so then this represents a ton of companies. Okay. Hundreds of companies all figuring out chemistry, biochemistry on a certain body system all at the same time. Okay, they all discover the drug. They're all like, "Oh yeah, we discovered it." And so now they have to develop the drug in quantities that will allow them to test it on a larger scale. And so that's what enters preclinical stages. And you can see some of these are then getting tossed by the wayside. I know it seems like it's like coming in, it's the same number. No, that's meant to show that it's actually the amount of people in this particular drug game are in the game still. Okay, and that's even before anything is mentioned to the FDA. Well, I shouldn't say that. If you're developing a drug, I believe you have to tell the FDA that you are trying to develop a drug, because they are the Food and Drug Administration. I guess they want to make sure that nobody's like making super heroin, fentanyl, right? Just willy-nilly. So they're still notifying the FDA that they're working on stuff, but it hasn't made it to the particular human trials yet. So clinical trial, preclinical are things like rat studies. And so if you develop one aspect of the drug that's supposed to work on X system of the body, then you want to test it on rats first, and if it doesn't work out, then you're out of the game. Okay, and that's before. So almost a third, or maybe even more, of the companies that get started in drug discovery after basic research is published by chemists at academic institutions, or by chemists and biochemists and other biochemical scientists at actual pharmaceutical companies publishing research. So it looks to me that at the IND stage, the application for clinical trials, phase 1 through phase 3, depending on what happens, right? It looks to me like at least a third ends up getting out of the game, and just being, I'm like, hey, well, our drug didn't work. It killed our rats. It killed them. So rat research is usually done, and unfortunately, rats are sacrificed. Unfortunately, to those that don't want research to be done on animals, right? There is, I believe, still some pig research that goes on certain things, due to our similarity. See, we're not very similar to rats, and so the rat study, effects on brains, or effects on liver, or effects on stomach, or whatever. They're mammals, so they at least have the same overall biology as us, especially basic biological systems like cellular respiration. So rats are used for that kind of stuff, trying to figure out, and they're really good for basic brain function, because they have a mammalian brain, which has essentially the same parts. It's just not as big, and it's not as convoluted as our brains are. And so rats are used as the first step. And so if you can't get out of preclinical, then you back to the drawing board for another kind of a drug, or back to the drawing board, like make a new iteration of it, right? So come back to this, right? And then so companies who get out of pre-clinical then get to apply to do the work on human subjects. And so the Food and Drug Administration is essentially the largest institutional review board in the country, in the entire organization of United States human subject ethics. Even though human subjects is actually under the jurisdiction of Health and Human Services, that department, it's actually the Food and Drug Administration that deals specifically with clinical trials that involve medication, treatment, those things, actual drugs. Okay, so they, even though they don't report to HHS, my point is that they are essentially the largest non-HHS IRB. So that's any IRB that exists at a research firm or university or college. And so they get those applications and they approve whether or not a drug gets to go to phase 1. Phase 1 trials are super important. You test a dozen to about 3 dozen, somewhere around 50, maybe even fewer people. Phase 1 clinical trials are to determine whether or not humans can withstand it. Okay, they're actively monitoring for very bad side effects, including death. And so people who are subjects in phase 1 clinical trials are really attempting to put their lives on the lines. Well, they will get assurance because preclinical didn't kill the rat or the pig or whatever, so that's at least comforting. Our biologies aren't exactly the same, but well, if you are participating in phase 1, maybe it's something that's a terminal illness, and you're like, I gotta get on that. Otherwise, I will die before any treatment comes to market. So, approved treatment comes to market. Again, takes a long time. So that's why the only this is in the tens of people, just trying to see whether or not the drug is going to be worth it, right? If the negative side effects outweigh the potential benefits, then nobody's going to take it, and it's going to be a DOA. It's going to be a DOA drug. It's going to be a DOA treatment, because the side effects outweigh the potential benefits. So that's what also phase 1 is all about. And so you can see the amount of potential drugs now has significantly, by the end of phase 1, has weeded out the drugs that cannot cut it in human biology. And so again, back to the drawing board, or a new iteration, or something completely different. And so if you look at the size, by the end of phase 1, we have less than a third. I would say, yeah, even actually a quarter to 20% of the potential drugs from the beginning. So a very small, a fifth, a quarter, something like that. Very small in relation to where we started over here at the drug discovery. That's a lot. And I mean, that's the system working, right? We don't want people taking drugs that'll kill them at a high rate, right? That would be really bad. So, yeah. It should be a small amount. It should be literally like the only thing that is good getting into phase 2. Super dry mouths. Man, today's been a long day. Will get easier. I know it will. Gotta stay healthy, man. You know? Stay healthy. Gotta get those vaccines. Yeah. Over here. We just gotta, right? Gotta do it. Okay, so we have about 20%. I'm sure the FDA has actual statistics on how many drugs make it through phase 1. It's probably under 20%. To be honest with you, it feels like it. It feels right. But if yeah, I'm sure there's statistics. So phase 2 clinical trials. Phase 2 clinical trials. Now we get to hundreds of people. Now now in phase 2, researchers. I technically am a researcher. Technically, are now testing in loads of people additional side effects problems. Right, getting better data on negative effects reported in phase 1. But now we get to see whether or not the drug works better than nothing. And so there is a control group. There's control group. And I think sometimes phase 2 contains potential waitlist control groups to determine it versus placebo, depending on what the drug does. Placebo effects have been shown to work wonders on lots and lots of things that are physical in nature. But you don't have to do waitlist controls all the time. You can just do placebo controls or nothing. And it's people with the same treatment. So you divide them, match them, randomly assign them, whatever you need to do to make sure that distribution across both groups is random. So you randomize in systematic ways. So you make sure that the distribution of noise is random across your groups. And then so as you can see from there, about half of those don't even make it. By the end of phase 2, half of those don't even make it. So, phase 2. You don't make it out of phase 2, it's probably because it didn't help. I mean, I think that's the one of perhaps the main reason why a potential drug doesn't make it out of phase 2 is that it just doesn't help. And you have now hundreds of people telling you that it's not really helping. Yeah, okay. In all honesty, hundreds is not that much, but it does give you a certain sense of whether or not this is a dud, right? May have helped the rats. It may have helped the pigs, but overall, it doesn't seem to be helping humans. And it's possible. It's entirely possible. So, phase 2 is critical for knowing that there was some promise there, and maybe a small tweak will get you back going. But you do have to start the process over, I believe. I'm not entirely sure on that one, though, because, again, I'm not a lawyer, an FDA lawyer, but I don't think you can jump right back. If you make a small tweak, I think it's now something that you have to potentially rename or just like give a similar name. I don't know the intricacies of that, so please don't take my word on that one. But at the end of phase 2, you'll know whether you had something promising that needs some TLC, or if you get to move on to phase 3. And phase 3 is the big kahuna test. There are definitely control groups. There are definitely thousands of people now with varying levels of whatever treatment that you're trying to do. So whatever the quote unquote chemical imbalance is, and whether it's something completely physical like cancer, or something that is of the psychological ilk like depression or something. So this is where you get people of various levels, follow them for the course of the treatment, and you hope to see that a good amount of people, not everyone because life is random, but a good amount of people, something that wouldn't be plausible, a statistical result that wouldn't be possible, not by chance, but that you are throwing chance out the window if there was no effect, right? So the p-value is the chance that assuming the null hypothesis is true, that you could get a score as extreme. Okay, Golden Duke, welcome. Clinical trials. I've seen an old laddie. I think that is. I can't tell if that's an. Yeah, I guess it's an I. Sometimes net text is really hard to read, especially L's and I's. It's really an old laddie that was on oxytocin. Be asked by a doctor right before she is discharged to get risky operation with new clinical trial drugs. Afterwards, she was alone and on hard drugs. Lost a bit of respect for how they do it. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole... there's like, 3 or 4 documentaries on, and then Hassan Minhaj on Patriot Act did a really great episode. Yeah, I think he did a really great episode. I think it was Patriot Act. On John Oliver. No, sorry, it was John Oliver on Last Week's Night did a really good piece on the whole Purdue Pharma and OxyContin and doctors basically getting bribed to hawk this OxyContin stuff. And yeah, the Golden Duke, that's literally what you described, is a pharmaceutical company trying to get into the market in a really shitty way, in a really really underhanded and unethical way, and you end up screwing people, like the women that you're talking about. I was just rereading. Sorry, I spaced out for a second because I was rereading Duke's chat message again. It's really bad. I mean, it used to be a top story in the area until COVID hit. But in the area that I'm in, there's quite a big issue with opioid use and opioid abuse and overdoses and things like that. All right, so half of the studies don't make it out of a stage phase 3. I was for some reason going to call it phase 3. The other part of it was the doctor was taking advantage of the effects on the brain, the agreeableness to go with whatever, because everything is dandy. Yeah, and that's very true. I mean, opioids, that's what opioids do, right? They make us feel good. They bind to our own endogenous opioid receptors, which are for reducing the effects of pain. So, yeah. Everything is dandy. I now understand previous message now, because she was high is what you meant, and then sort of offered her on top of it. Oh, by the way, do you want to put me in your will? Thank you. So look at how many potential drugs are here versus where we started. It's just less than 10%. Yes, it's less than. It's gotta be less than 10%. Again, I don't have the statistics, and I don't really want to try to find them, to be honest. It's got to be less than 10%. I know it's got to be less than check. Yes, and check. Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah. So less than 10% of potential drugs now are have to be submitted back to the FDA for review. So not only does the FDA review the IND, but they then have to get the results reviewed by an expert panel, and that could take months. Sometimes it can take years. Because the FDA will do their independent investigation, and so through that time period, it's like we'll do one, go through it, we'll do another one, go through it, and then eventually at the end of review, there's really just the one that had the most promising outcome for the particular treatment it was for the particular change in a person's biochemistry in some way. And then you have the seal of approval from the FDA. And phase 4 clinical trials are post-approval, and so the company is legally on the hook. The pharmaceutical company is legally on the hook to continue human trials, which means not just going here, it's out on the market. Doctors and other prescribers, start handing them out. Whee! No, the company is legally on the hook to do further human trials that are closely monitored. Okay, because it's entirely possible in the randomness of chemistry and biochemistry, even though some things are some of the most predictable things in the universe, there is still some randomness. And so phase 4 is necessary to make sure what was found in phase 1 or preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 was all good. And then they'll, I think, it seems to me, hey Paige, welcome to the stream. It seems to me that that some pharmaceutical companies would probably continue this monitoring through the end of their patent, but that's just a wild guess. Again, I have no idea how the patent law here works. What I know that companies get brand name patents for a drug that they discover. Over here, they get that patent. Hey, Toms. But I would imagine once the patent runs out and other drug makers can start making just generic versions of the brand name that was initially discovered, something like Lipitor. Hey, Jandraloon. I hope I said that right. That's the first time I've actually spoken it out of my mouth. The one thing that I actually didn't mention when I was going through this, you can see here in this lovely caption here, the average R&D cost required to bring a new FDA-approved medicine to patients is estimated to be $2.6 billion. I read that as I pulled this up, and I was like, oh my god. $2.5 billion. And that was in 2013 dollars. Okay, 2013 dollars. So that's 7 years worth of inflation. I bet it's got to be over $3 billion now. 2020 dollars. Got to be over $3 billion. Although I'm curious how the vaccine drugs for COVID are going, based on how speedy the FDA is approving advancement through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. There's a number, but anyways, I'll come back to the I'll talk about the COVID ones just in a few minutes. That's a good question, Paige. I'll come back to that in just a second. But including the cost of many potential medicines that do not make it through approval. So companies will pay $2 billion and get screwed right here in phase 2 or something like that. And it's just like, right? Anyways, Paige, it's a good question. How long do you think it will get before we get a vaccine for COVID? That is a really good question. And I gratefully, as far as like feeding my curiosity on that one, NPR has stories on it like every morning. Well, maybe not every morning, but every other morning or something. So we get updated quite a bit, which I think is nice. There are a handful of medicines, and I was starting to say this a few minutes ago. There are a handful of drugs now from a number of companies. The first one started with an M. If you do the Googling on that one, you can find it. I think the company started with an M. I'm looking on it. But they're in phase 3 already. But as sort of you can see by the relative sizes of these rectangles that phase 1 is shorter than phase 2. Phase 2 is shorter than phase 3. You can, as far as like how long it takes to actually do these. The good news is that there are a handful of medicines that are in phase 3 right now. So some experts are saying now these are going to be patented drugs. Whoever wins the race. You may have heard Russia. Said they have developed one, but I mean, the United States has developed more than one, of course, but we're still trying to test it on loads of people. So the experts are saying, hopefully by the start of next year. That's like best case scenario, like December, January. But I think a more realistic, I was going to say idealistic, a more realistic number is date, not number, is more like April or May. I will be pleasantly surprised if we get it by the end of the year. I will be pleasantly surprised. And I will be surprised. Like, my expectation is a little bit more on the realist end. I hate to say that, but it sort of is. I mean, it is what it is. Because that's, I guess, the kind of person I am. But writing something. But I would love it. But then you have the next problem, and I know you didn't actually ask this, Paige, but then you have the next problem of telling people to get it and get it now, and how much is it going to cost, and just, you know, all of that logistical stuff. And really, I think the hardest thing is going to get people to go take it, and take it in a timely fashion so we can speed back up, loosening all of the restrictions that we can, and see whether and then there's the lag time of seeing about whether it actually works. Right? We have the 2 weeks lag time between a positive number and a death. So I think that's gonna be the biggest challenge. I would love to see it just be like, yes, this COVID off. COVID off. That's what it should be named. Drug companies, if you are watching, I will take a check. Anyways, COVID off. If it comes out in December, that would be great. But how quickly can you get it, and how quickly can you get all the people that need to take it? Whether they had it already, and it's a situation where you need like boosters because we don't fully stay immune to it, like tetanus, right? You have to get a tetanus shot every 10 years, or at least you should be. You have to get that every 10 years because our immunity to the tetanus virus wanes. We get bad at it, right? Yeah, Paige, and I'm pretty sure in your circles that there are a lot that a lot is scary, right? And if people in your circles are saying that, then imagine what other circles are saying, especially the ones that are like all anti-vax, right? There were a couple of other questions. I think Duke, you had one up above. I kind of went on a tangent there. Oh yeah, Kepra. Yeah, I know that. I don't know that well. But I mean, I don't take it, but I know somebody who did for seizures. She's not on them anymore though. She did not like it. Crazy withdrawal symptoms. Yeah. Yeah. Also, status epilepticus is a constant seizure. Yeah. Killing you in 3 days. Oof. That is rough. Yeah, she did not like Kepra. And so she's on something different now. Which is good. And then, Carrie, you had a question. I hope you're still around. Oh, yeah. I did. I don't know exactly when, but as far as your question goes, because it's kind of what Paige asked, there are some candidates in phase 3 right now. And that's because the FDA, I talked about this toward the beginning of the stream, the FDA is essentially breaking their own rules in order to speed the process along, because it's a timely need, right? We need to get something out there super quick. And so normally this whole process takes years, literal years, for something that is discovered to actually hit the market. And for good reason, right? As I mentioned, that we need to know over time, is this thing going to be good? But because time is of the essence now, yes, we increase the possible mistakes that can be made, and we might miss people falling through the cracks, whether those cracks are it's ineffective and they die of COVID-related complications because it was ineffective, or they fall through the cracks because they actually have such negative side effects that they die for some other reason, right? And then that has to get listed on the commercial side effects or in the side effects packet and all that stuff. And so just because we're trying to get this out on the market as soon as possible, it's potential more mistakes are definitely on the table. And that actually just came out in the last week, Carrie. Saliva COVID test. So there's a trade-off here. There's a trade-off, and I'm glad you brought that up because that had to go through a slightly different set of FDA approvals because it didn't need to be tested inside a human. It's because it's something that you extrude from them, so your olfactory bulb, that it got out on the market faster is what I'm trying to say. It got on the market faster because of its nature. And it's a trade-off, though, with the one that goes up your nose, the nose nasal swab, as it's so-called, is because in your saliva, what they're looking for is are the antigens, which is the key to our antibody lock, which our own immune cells make, right? So we develop the key to open the lock, and once we open the lock, the virus is dead. So we need that information, and so it can lead to more false negatives, so not catching an actual infected person, or false positives, telling a non-infected person that they are indeed infected with COVID. False positives are bad for the positivity rate, to just knowing how well the virus is infecting people. Well is from the virus perspective, of course. So false positives aren't necessarily terrible. They're not terrifying, although they can be psychologically terrifying. They're not actually life-threatening, false positives, but they do mess with being able to track statistics. Far worse are the false negatives, telling somebody that they don't have COVID when they indeed do, and so they are more free to move about the cabin, and you end up getting more spread because a person doesn't know, and so they have a false sense of security. And so that's what the trade-off is. It's super quick, though. Minutes it can detect the trace amounts of virus in your saliva, which is crazy. That's crazy. Minutes. You rock up, you spit into a cup, they do the antibody test, and within minutes you'll know whether or not you have a positive or negative. But again, increased risk and chance of false of either one of those. The nasal swab is more accurate, but obviously the inconsistency in getting test results and the length of those inconsistencies is pretty, like, almost worthless. I mean, it's not actually worthless, but for some people on a personal level, getting a test result 2 weeks later, it's possible that the infection ran its course and you weren't one of the unlucky ones. So we definitely need to take we definitely need to get a trade-off there. As far as I'm aware, and I could be completely misconstruing what the administration has told us, but I'm pretty sure the tests that they do at Carl Hospital in Eureka is a 48-hour turnaround, and it's less invasive. It's like they don't go all the way up in your nasal cavity and like tickle your funny bone down here. But it is 48 hours, so you don't actually have to wait for, a a week or 2 weeks or whatever these delays have been. So yeah. That's a man. These such good questions right now. Golden Duke with Vimpat. Yeah. Paige, have you read things Gary? Yep, that's what they're doing. They're tickling, they're saying hello to your funny bone all the way through. I don't want to do it either. Have you read anything about schools enforcing kids to take the vaccine, like on their physical tests before classes start? I would love if schools do that, because they already do. In the state of Illinois and many other states, like the state of California, because I did go to a school there, you are now required to get your meningitis B vaccine before you can attend campus. And if you come to a campus in Illinois, and you haven't gotten meningitis B, you will be disciplined in some way. I can't remember exactly, but you're basically not allowed on campus. Now, in this age of like remote learning, well, then if you don't want to get a meningitis B vaccine, well, then can I do my classes remote? Well, no, but you did it during COVID. Why can't you do it now? And it's just like, oh God, headache. So they're just gonna require it. And I believe this is true, but private colleges and universities can dictate whatever they want for being on campus that is not expressly prohibited by the U.S. Constitution or Illinois State Constitution. Like, obviously, age, sex, marital status, race, ethnicity, blah, 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 blah. Those are expressly prohibited. But private colleges, if not expressly prohibited, can say, no, if you don't have this vaccine, then you don't get to come here. And I think there would be public support for, like, just the same way there's public support for mask wearing. I would say there would be public support, but I could be wrong. But despite the vocal minority about mask wearing and the hoax of COVID, there is massive public support for wearing masks anywhere in public. Whether that's a store, whether that's a school, whether that's wherever, there's broad public support for that. Like, I'm talking like over 60% of surveyed adults. And I feel like that would be a similar case. It seems intuitive to me that that would be the case for a vaccine. And so I don't think schools, whether they are K through 12 or colleges and universities, higher ed, I don't see a case where the public's going to vilify colleges for saying, no, you can't be on campus if you don't have your vaccine. Because this is a public health crisis. Just like meningitis is, and it's very difficult to catch meningitis just walking around breathing other people's air, right? You can't catch meningitis like that, but you can catch a really, really gnarly lower and upper respiratory infection that just basically shuts down your lungs. So if that is indeed true, Paige, I am all for it. That is of course my opinion, and my opinion only. Does not reflect anybody else's opinion, but I would love if that were the case. More vaccine stuff needs to be mandated by law. And I honestly, at this point in my life, can't stand to hear the personal freedoms argument. Not because I think it's wrong. It's just that I don't think it applies in this situation. In any public health situation, something that, as you can see now, clearly can decimate an entire population, a tiny little microscopic organism that's only job in life is to make more copies of itself. And that's it. It doesn't do anything else except want someone else to make copies of itself. And that's it. And so if you take this little microorganism that gives zero shites about personal freedom, then by all means, try to talk to that microscopic organism and tell them, yo, bro, I really wish you wouldn't infect me because I don't want to get a shot. That's what I think that argument boils down to. The personal freedom. Not that I am saying that personal freedom, the argument itself is not valid I just don't think it's valid in this context because of how the vaccines we've developed have spread and how vaccines have potentially eradicated certain diseases. Like we don't have smallpox very much anymore. There is an uptick from people who aren't getting vaccines, right? And polio, it's randomly making an uptick, but even the biggest culprit of it all, the MMR vaccine and the uptick in measles in the United States. So these vaccines do work, and no amount of, like, I did my YouTube research is going to change the fact that the vast majority of the information that is present in this world indicates that they work, and if it constitutes a public good, I think it should be mandated. If it constitutes a public good, you know, the tiny little unethical devil that sits on my left shoulder. You know, you got an angel and the devil, right? Well, it's very small because I am the IRB chair, and so I can't think of unethical things too much. Otherwise, it gets a little too big. But the tiny little devil in me sometimes says, you know, let's just put aside ethics for the greater good for a minute. And just like fake people out and just like drive by stab them with a hypodermic needle, or like, hey, you want a lollipop? And then it's an aerosol vaccine, you know, one that you inhale. It's just like do it in really sneaky ways. But then the large angel on my right shoulder is like, yeah, no, can't do that. Please stop thinking that you can do that. Graduates of YouTube and Facebook, yes, definitely, Carrie. Golden Duke, you had a question earlier that I saw pass by. The culture of individualistic freedoms with a collectivist idea mimetics. Yeah, I think that a little bit of that. Yeah, personal freedoms is definitely the argument to be made for Western cultures, individualistic Western cultures, for sure. YouTube is so neat. No, for real though, for real, it is super cool. But in Gen Psych next week. Is it next week? Yeah, it would be next Tuesday because we only have one class this week and that's tomorrow. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be introducing scientific literacy, and so I introduce a number of I'll call them conspiracy theories. They don't really rise to the occasion of conspiracy theories. But I start with that, and I nub them a little bit on whether these could be particularly true or not. And then later in the semester, I plan to devote an entire day an entire class period in that class on conspiracy theories, and I can't wait because I trial run the conspiracy theory idea in social psych in July, and I really liked it, and I think with freshmen it'll be even fun. It'll be fun because I'm really curious to know if anybody in my class thinks COVID is a hoax, or if QAnon is a real person. Those are my two current favorite ones right now. So I'll be interested to see. I'm gonna have them do it personally, and then like have them write it down, and then we'll talk about conspiracy theories broadly. But then I'll like see whether or not anybody. I'll do it. I'll do it anonymously. I won't, because I don't want to shame anybody in case they do. But they're free to write it. I'm gonna ask them to be honest. But I'm sure I'll get the joke answer of COVID. But hopefully they'll say on there, I'm joking. Sorry for not giving you a real answer. Am I going to cover lying with statistics? Not in 101. I do talk a little bit about understanding statistics conceptually, what they're trying to say. But lying with statistics, I don't even have a good venue for it, to be honest with you. I do enjoy the nature of that book, though. I haven't read all of it. I've only read blurbs. I should probably get it. After Conspiracy Theories, the LSD study. I'd much rather talk about the actual good studies that have gone through. Hey, thanks for bringing us back, Golden Duke, to the topic of the day. I'd much rather actually talk about, and I do mention this when I talk about therapy, is the psychedelic research that is coming out, specifically psilocybin, shrooms, magic mushrooms, and its ability to just sort of crush depression through just like 2 or 3 really deep and meaningful psychedelic experiences. It seems to reset things. Now, I say that broadly because I don't want to say something far too specific. But it seems to reset something. The experiences. Some people have reported from I believe they're in phase 2 or phase 3, somewhere around there. Oh no! There is actually one that is FDA approved. It's not everywhere though, because the stipulation with this particular treatment is that you have to do it under supervision. You can't just like go get, just like you can with like a cannabis card, a medical cannabis card. You can't just walk up and be like, yeah, can I get some shrooms? I want to beat this depression. It doesn't work like that. You have to actually go to a center and you have to do that. That's I'd much rather talk about that stuff because that's really cool. Ketamine is on there as well. So ketamine is, generally speaking, a tranquilizer, but apparently the high is the high associated with it, or I guess the low, because it's trank, also offers some meaningful shift in brain chemistry, or at least perspective. If it's a truly psychedelic experience, it may be 100% psychological resetting, but again, you can make the argument and be reductionist and say, well, the psychological changes are from biochemical changes. So, if nothing is valued anymore, it is a depression. Yeah, that's one of the symptoms. Yeah, Carrie, it's really interesting stuff. And I think I mentioned, didn't I? I thought I mentioned the psilocybin stuff, because I remember Jesse commenting on it before we went remote. in Cognuro in spring. Yeah, Golden Duke, you need the shaman to guide you for sure. You need the and it's really cool. Oh man, I wish I remember where it was. There are other treatments, by the way, other related treatments that are going through clinical trials. I don't want to rain on those folks' parades, but yeah. It's really interesting to see where this research will go, and maybe, just maybe, we can get some of those psychedelics removed from Schedule 1 classification, so they become more legal. I really hope that if this treatment works and is promising over time, right, these phase 4 studies, I really, really, really hope that the stigma around psychedelics like LSD, like MDMA, well, maybe not MDMA. MDMA will break your heart in a literal way. But like it will reduce the stigma around shrooms and things like that. I should say psilocybin. I am a professional, I should say. I should call it what it is. Yeah. I really hope that's the case. I really do. Reducing the stigma, I think, is really important. And I feel like we're on our way with cannabis. We are on our way. As more states legalize it for recreational use, like alcohol. Like, think of how we treat alcohol in our society. Like, I could walk into class. Well, maybe not walk into class. But I could walk into a store, drunk off my face, and if I'm not making a ruckus, or I'm not damaging anything, people are probably going to leave me alone. Especially if I, like, try to act not drunk. And if you've ever been drunk, probably acted this way. But try not to act drunk. And so if I'm, like, acting normal, out of the range of, like, not super silly. Exactly, Vegas. As long as I'm not acting silly, then, everything's fine. People are like, or in the opposite way, oh, that's just Jerry. He's drunk now. He'll be fine. He's a sweet drunk. You kind of see some, not all the way, but you kind of see some of that same cultural do I want to say appreciation? The same cultural lens of alcohol. You're starting to see that in those states that allow it recreationally. It becomes more accepted. The more ubiquitous it is, the more accepted it becomes. What the funny thing is that it didn't work for cigarettes. And that's really because for two reasons. One, tobacco and nicotine never had the prohibit then rehibit. Prohibit and then not prohibit. And so people realize that no, we kind of need alcohol. Whether the need is actually real is notwithstanding, but be that as it may, I think the Prohibition years really showed humans how much love of alcohol there was. People made their own, and it was awful, right? But so tobacco never had that reckoning. And then, because tobacco never had that reckoning, we had so much data to support the idea that smoking cigarettes causes cancer. And it does so at a very rapid rapid rate, and it affects a lot of people who do it, as opposed to drinking too much, which, according to some studies, or drinking alcohol on a regular basis, which, according to some studies, is possibly good for your health. I don't know, because then equal amount of studies say, no, it's not. No, it's not. Stop saying that to people. Stop saying that to people. So cigarettes never had their reckoning, and then they said, oh yeah, by the way, it causes cancer, and people are like, well, maybe we should tell people to stop doing that now. Because the smoke that they breathe out also kills people. And so it was never banned. I mean, it's socially frowned upon, but it's not banned. So, I think you see a shift. Boy, that was a huge digression, but an awesome digression. I really enjoy talking about the stuff. And I really enjoy talking about this stuff because I think it's one of those things that I'm glad I didn't actually pursue in school. So I appreciate learning about it more, and maybe it's because I'm learning it at a lower level. Maybe I'm learning it at a at a college level, maybe. Kind of uptick a little bit, but I don't try to know it from a graduate level or an expert level. And so I think it makes me appreciate it more. It makes me a little bit, it makes me what I think it does is it helps me understand my field way more, because I have all of these side pockets of knowledge that I get to add, to it. So, to my current set of knowledge. So that's why I like talking about some stuff that's not necessarily in my wheelhouse, but I've read enough, and I've listened to enough, and I've watched enough stuff to where I can now synthesize it with what I already know, even though it's not super high level. So that's why I like talking about this stuff. That's why I'm going to talk about it tonight. And now that we're back on campus, I really hope a vaccine comes soon, because I will be the first in line, and hopefully it's free as I'm waiting in line. But as far as other vaccines go, a fast track, generally speaking, for flu vaccines is that they get to basically bypass this, because vaccine itself is just a reiteration of predicted mutations of current influenza. So they get to, there's a different process for those vaccines, but the reporting on that seems to suggest that that might be available a little bit early. But they won't know what its effectiveness is until later in the season. What is that? Nullius inverba? Translate. Or is that this has meaning to me? Ah, man. Could be that's ambiguous. Take nobody's word for it. Anyways, get your flu vaccine. On the word of no one. Okay. Take nobody's word for it. Okay. I can dig it. I like it. Anyways, get your flu vaccine. Because they're approved every year. Because they're just iterations on already exists. So I'll drop in some more Latin in here. No, thank you. I'm just kidding. I only know the Latin that I need to know for science. Being not obliged to swear in words allegiance to a master, wherever the storm drags me, I am turned in as a guest. I like it. Yeah. Wherever the storm drags me. We're so poetic with Latin. No wonder we dropped it. way things are going. People believe in COVID is a hoax. Anyways, get your flu vaccine. Yeah, they're not 100% effective. Yeah, they're probably not 99% effective. But it's better than nothing. And I know what I don't want. I wouldn't want flu and COVID at the same time. Because they're both respiratory infections. And, I gotta tell you, one's not gonna win over the other. They're both gonna say, hey, Rona, yeah, flu, you wanna beat up this guy? He seems like a dummy. He's got all of these lung cells. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good, flu. That's what they're gonna do. They are going to ravage your central breathing apparatus. And I can tell you that you need your central breathing apparatus if you want to live. Yeah. Till a man is the master of the environment until he is not. Definitely. That is for sure what's going to happen. So, get that flu vaccine and then be right behind me in line for that COVID vaccine once it's available. I'm really hoping, and this is a thing for Carrie too, I'm really hoping, hey, Neurofurier, thanks for the host. Gonna end in a little bit, but appreciate it. 49 viewers. Hello, everyone. What I'm really hoping is that Carl, our hospital next to the campus, gets some of that sweet vaccine when it becomes available. So we can get that. That's very selfish of me to say, but I'm really hoping that that's the case. Hoping. Yeah. Gonna be good. I will take it so I can take care of the ones I love. Yeah. I mean, that is, oh, very cool, Neurofurier. I appreciate that. I very much appreciate that. Very cool. But yeah, Golden Duke, that's very, very, very true. Because, if you are healthy, then, like, you need to get the thing that'll help you be healthy for others who can't take it, right? Because that brings me to, I guess, the last point of this digression is the whole herd immunity thing. The whole immunity thing, a herd immunity thing. Are you okay, Murphy? My dog is over here, and he's like, oh, thanks, Neuro. Oh, Snot Garden. Sorry, it's the same color. I looked at it quickly. This is from the FDA. I didn't make it. I did not make it. But to be the healthy one, to get the herd immunity for the people who can't take a vaccine for whatever delivery method or whatever is possible. My wife just came down. And oh, he was. Were you outside? Oh, okay. Yeah, so be the first in line for that. And Neuro, you said that you were just discussing the COVID vaccine development and flu co-infection. Oh, I love it. That's so funny. Right. Yes, exactly. Thanks for the follow, Snot Garden. Appreciate it. Yeah. That's so funny that I did good segue. Hey, we're still talking about it. My discussion has to end, but here's a guy who's talking about the same thing. Neuro hype. Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's all part of the subject, like life, universe, and everything. 42. Maybe, what could we... I'm sure somebody is numerologing the hell out of that right now and trying to find out a connection between 42 and COVID. I don't know. Something to do with 2020. If you add the 2 and the 2 together, then you get 4, and then you take one of those 2s, and you get 2. 42, yeah! I did it! Woo! Neuro, you're a neurologist on the front lines for managing vaccine development, so it's a nice intersection. Awesome. I am a cognitive psychologist, but I teach research methods, and so today was the first day of classes, and I mentioned clinical trials because that's just on the top of my head, especially for the COVID vaccine development and how some are being like fast tracked, and hopefully we get one soon. Because I like talking about clinical trials as a method, So I just was like, yeah, and here's what the process looks like. So this graphic has been up for an hour and a half of just me sitting next to it talking about it, going through each of the rectangles and talking about what each phase does and all of that stuff. Just because I don't really get to spend a lot of time talking about clinical trials in psychology because we end up talking more about abstract effects, and all you need is a human subjects committee or IRB to approve that. You don't need the FDA for that. And thanks for the follow too, by the way. And thanks for the follow, Cindy Lauren. I appreciate that. Stock Garden epidemiologist. Ooh, the Brain Trust is joined. Also teach research methods, and I'm assuming your research methods are more focused on the epidemiology part. I'm assuming that you spend quite a bit of time on mortality, morbidity, and things like that. Oh, do you talk about? And I imagine that you talk about human subjects quite a bit for epidemiology, but you don't necessarily have to, I guess. But it makes the most sense, I suppose. But like I said, yeah, I don't get to talk about this enough because I have to talk about, memory effects. So those tend to be my examples in research methods. Yeah, cohort studies, case controls. I definitely don't have time to talk about those. I mention very briefly on the same day that I do, I think, another design time series analysis, and I basically like this is one kind of time series, this is another kind of time series, this is another kind of time series. Okay, moving on. And the real bummer is that even though research methods is generally speaking similar across all sciences, it's interesting how your training and then the niche that you end up in can really dictate how you then ultimately teach the class. Yeah, a lot of overlap for sure. But I think that's really interesting. And as I was mentioning on the stream before all these lovely people came and joined us, I was saying how what was the question actually? That will help me remember what I was saying. Scrolling up in chat here. I don't remember where it was now. It's so long ago, but oh man, it's been a long day, so I probably am not gonna get this thought out. Probably not gonna get this thought out. Anyways, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here. I'm actually gonna go watch the DNC because I'm really sad. I'm a sad person. No, but for those of you who aren't in the U.S., the Democratic National Committee is Skyping all of us. No, they're streaming from Twitch. I'm really interested if they're using like OBS. Probably not. But they are doing the streams for them, and very cool people are talking tonight, so I want to catch that. So my next stream is gonna be on Sunday morning. More office hours for my classes. I have the first day for my other two classes tomorrow, and so Sunday will be open to those folks, of course, and then next Wednesday I'm trying to get a hold of some indigenous scholar work. I'm trying to get some leads on some, and this is I feel really bad that, I mean, I don't know any indigenous psychologists. They're out there. Anyways, what I wanted to do on Sunday was I wanted to highlight indigenous scholars, so I posted on Twitter a call, and it got retweeted a bunch. I didn't get much, so I might have to do my own tomorrow. I plan to do that. But I was going to do that, highlight some indigenous scholars. Trying to be from anywhere. Psychologists, of course, because I know psychology, but other indigenous scientists would be cool too. And I was going to talk about those folks while doing a little bit of nostalgia play. I haven't played in like decades. The Oregon Trail, because you can play it through web browser these days. So I was going to play the Oregon Trail and talk about how the Oregon Trail contributed to the almost deletion of indigenous lands, of which I currently occupy. This literal piece of land used to be indigenous. There was a tribe of folks that lived in this literal piece of land. So I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, I could wait for Indigenous Peoples Day, or the day before Indigenous Peoples Day, but maybe I'll do it again. So that's going to be it for this stream. Thanks for the follow, Delantish. I really hope I parsed that right. But cheers to the group of people that came by and the follows and everything. I appreciate it. And get that vaccine and get that flu vaccine too. Everyone have a good night. And take care.